please welcome our next panel discussion, Catalyzing a Healthier and Resilient Future. Who doesn't want to be a part of this? Can I invite Venkatasubramanian Narayanan, co-founder and CEO of Peptris, Sunil Maddikatla, the founder and CEO of EYVA, Dr. Anasuya Roy, founder of NanoSafe Solutions, and to chair this important session, let me invite Kumaar Bagrodia, the founder and CEO of Arkni PhotoBioLife and NeuroLeap. I was having an interesting chat with Kumar, so I'm very intrigued to see how this panel goes. Please stay tuned. Over to you, Kumar, and our panelists. All the very best.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Before we get into introductions, just a quick question to people in the audience. How many of you go to a regular doctor, MBBS, MD, allopath, to look after your health? When there's nothing wrong with you, how many of you are relying on a doctor to remain healthy? Anybody? Okay, so I see, one, two, like maybe 5 hands out of close to about 100. So why? Why is it that so few people are going to mainstream doctors to remain healthy when there's nothing wrong with them? And I think this panel will probably try and answer that question on how do you catalyze a healthier future, how do you remain more resilient? I'm Kumaar Bagrodia. I'm a neuroscientist. I run a couple of ventures in the neurotech and deeptech space. I'll let our panelists do a quick round of introductions and talk about the work they are doing.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Venkat. I'm the CEO of Peptris Technologies. Peptris is an AI-powered drug discovery company. So when we talk about, there are about a few thousand diseases that are known to us and without any treatment at all. And finding novel drugs or finding repurposed possibilities for these therapies, finding therapies for these diseases is what Peptris is all about. And we are taking one disease at a time and probably trying to solve as much of human this one as possible over time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Anasuya, and I head a startup which is into chemical formulations for antimicrobials. So we design antimicrobial formulations for different materials. Any kind of material that you see around yourself, we have the capacity to make it antimicrobial, and our chemistry is based on active copper, which is a traditional material to make antimicrobials. We are winners of several awards, including the National Startup Award and a couple of other international awards. And we are on a journey to make all the materials around us safer and healthier.
Hello everyone, a very good evening. This is Sunil. I'm the founder of EYVA. We are the world's first metabolic health product that measures different key vitals of your body and try to analyze how your lifestyle is actually helping you keep up with your biological age to chronological age overall. Right now I could see a lot of you little dizzy, I guess. Probably or few minutes into the conversation, I might probably tell you why you might be feeling dizzy as well. Looking forward to this.
Interesting. Dr. Anasuya, let me start with you. You spoke about antimicrobial solutions. Give us an example that if your product didn't exist, what would be the impact on health and well-being for the general public?
So we all know nowadays preventive is much more important than diagnosis and treatment. So what we do is we make materials around us antimicrobial. So what it essentially means is we are imbibing the materials with a layer of protection which is permanent. For example, we supply to the water industry. So we supply to water tanks, water pipes, water purifiers. So any material that comes in constant contact with water has a proneness of microbial degradation. So what we essentially do is we stop or inhibit the growth of microbes as well as biofilms so that the materials remains safer and can work for us for a longer duration of time. Well, this sounds like a invisible protection which is inbuilt, but let me tell you, it has huge consequences if you do not use it. So if you do not use it, the microbial proliferation or growth would be so much that we will fall sick much more frequently. Think of a product like water tank. When was the last time that we actually cleaned it? Can you imagine that water is stored in that water tank for years altogether and we rarely clean it? The amount of microbes it will grow if it does not have microbial protection. So quantifying the seriousness of why, there are many materials that we use around ourselves which, the product does not claim antimicrobial, but it is built with an antimicrobial. Let me give you another example. Mattresses. We use every day to sleep, right? Is there anybody here who does not use a mattress for sleeping at night? So that mattress we never wash, right? We never disinfect, we never do anything. But all the mattresses right now are built with antimicrobial protection. I'm fortunate enough to be supplying to one of the leading industries, which is Sleepwell, with our antimicrobial formulation. But they never advertise it is antimicrobial. It is such a need to have product that most of the material sciences companies will use the chemical but will not really advertise to say that they are doing this, because that is such a must-have thing in today's world. So I believe preventive is much more better than diagnosis and treatment.
Very interesting, and I'll come back to you in a bit. So in a sense, what we are seeing is that health is no longer just defined as the absence of disease. It is also talking about prevention. It is also referring to an optimized state of being, your physical, mental, cognitive, emotional, all of this. How can you ensure you're performing at your best and do it for a longer lifespan? As a longevity specialist, one of the ventures we have is helping people perform better way into their longer years of life. Why should we be assuming that if a person is 60, 70, 80 years old, they will not be able to be cognitively sharper? Or why should it be that certain rare diseases should be able to, snatch away abilities in some form or the other? With the advent of AI, with the advent of, smart chips, technologies which were erstwhile either too expensive or just didn't exist to be able to, put in the hands of the average consumer, or being able to be used for research, for health and healthcare. Today you have that ability. And Venkat, you're working in that area. You're using AI to combat rare diseases. So the first question I'll have for you is, give us a glimpse, on what are rare diseases, how many are there, and when you say rare, how rare is that one particular disease?
Thanks. It's a very relevant question. So when you talk about rare diseases, there is no universal definition for what is rare. Yeah. In some countries, it is like some diseases that affects about 1 in 1,000 people, or in the overall population, if there are less than 10,000 people in the country, then it is rare for some countries. So, but a nominal definition is something like 1 in 4,000 or 1 in 5,000 are affected by a particular condition, then it is deemed rare, because your normal doctors or so on, like whom you generally go to, may not be even aware of that condition, yeah? Because they're not going to see it every day. And there are about 7,000 plus rare diseases that have been enumerated. So which means that we are still like finding out more, and this data set is growing harder. But 1 in 5,000 or 1 in 4,000 looks like still rare, right? But when you talk about a population of 1.4 billion, we are already going to be in millions there. So we are having so many patients out there for which there is no diagnosis known, or there is a diagnostic odyssey, as we call it. People are going from one doctor to the other trying to figure out what the real condition is. The pity there is they don't even know the name of the disease that they are going through. Forget a therapy for it. Yeah? Most of the time these rare diseases are just managed for the symptoms and not really treated at all. So that is the first part of the question. And so here AI is going to help in an immense way, right from diagnostics to finding therapies. So Peptris works on finding therapies, but what we know from the whole space is that with AI coming in, these diagnostics of these rare conditions is also getting a big boost. Right from gene panels being analyzed faster and coming up with the real root cause of some of these diseases, and then translating these conditions or translating this new knowledge to find therapies for them. Again, AI is making a big advances there. But of course, having said all that, there are still 7,000 plus rare diseases for which we do not have any treatment whatsoever.
Give us an example of what is a rare disease that you're working on.
Okay, at Peptris, we are working on a rare disease condition called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which affects about 1 in 4,000 boys. It's a neurodegenerative disease. And most of the time, by the time in a country like India, when it is discovered that the kid has it, typically it affects only boys, it's probably in their 6th year or the 7th year. And in the West, it's going to be the 2 or 3 years. So we'll still be like 4 years later that we would do it. And the only treatment, even after finding a name for it, is putting them on steroids so that whatever condition. So it's a neurodegenerative disease. So what it means is that the kids slowly start losing their mobility. Sure. And by the time they are about in their teens, early into their teens, they are wheelchair bound. And by the time they are in their 20s, early 20s, the heart muscles, the lung muscles, all of it, the diaphragm, all of it gets affected, and they don't live past their early 20s. And the condition that we are working on is in Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and it is a family of diseases, muscular dystrophies per se, which is again another 30, 40 odd diseases clubbed into that same family. And there are close to 5 lakh kids at least in India suffering from Duchenne.
Gosh, that is indeed something worth solving, not just because of the numbers, but because of the severity of the problem you mentioned, right? So the lifespan is reduced to what, 20, 25 years, you said?
So one of the things that we don't typically like, when you hear about a disease, we always look at it from a patient's perspective.
Correct.
Yeah? What we also don't see is from the caregiver's perspective.
True.
Here there are parents, the families, everyone is affected because a kid who is not mobile is going to be supported by their parents, True. By their grandparents, by their uncles, aunts. So overall productivity loss because of this one at a national level is True. Also going to be quite high. So there are multiple aspects to it. One Certainly. Is desperation, the other is the overall productivity.
Certainly. That brings me to you, Sunil. Venkat, like he mentioned, several diseases are not even, being diagnosed correctly. And so we are entering an era where prevention is better than cure is no longer just a lovely phrase, but it's something that we all need to work towards. And you mentioned you have a device and a service to that effect. So please tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure, thanks for that, Kumar. So probably I'd like to explain that with a simple example that I myself kind of experienced when I was using EYVA. So it was last year where I was continuously checking with the product, and we have this AI already in place within the product. The EYVA was predicting or understanding higher vital variations in my body, at least from last 10 days, let's say last year, September. So then, these are small variations. I can't just call up my doctor and say, hey, my heart rate is increasing, tell me what should I do, right? There are some small questions that we can't necessarily ask. You get a headache at 2 o'clock in the night. You can't call up your doctor, right? So then I started talking to EYVA, like, hey, just look at my data, analyze what's going on at a top level. Interestingly, it kind of gave me 3 top reasons on why my vital variations were fluctuating. One of them was my body might be fighting an infection. That was one of them, and somehow I could relate to it because I was feeling a little dizzy. Just after 2-3 days, I got fever. So it was very interesting to see how a stronger data, that was both the physiological and biological data, when they are associated with an AI model that has much broader understanding, obviously with definitive God rings, can be able to use to understand trends in your variations in day-to-day life, and try to see if it can give you a symptom radar. It necessarily need not be something that is so definitive, but is more directional. That, hey, I'm thinking this might be happening. Similar example was, I kept on getting continuous headaches late in the night. Usually you speak to any of the nutritionists that will tell you that not to eat anything post 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. But my work hours were pretty long, till 11 p.m. or so. I was getting these headaches because my body was deprived of energy. So it was trying to, get some energy which I wasn't. More or less, it was pushing into hypoglycemic state because of my active state and no energy. That's why I was getting, and hydration both. That's why I was getting headaches. With a little understanding and with stronger data, I was able to see that, okay, if I have to work a little long hours, probably I need to change my meal routine as well to a little later, so that I might not fall hypoglycemic so often. So that way, there are many such cases that we can implement in our day-to-day life. We can literally start bio-experimenting with ourselves.
That's very interesting. On a lighter note, I just want to ask, did you get the fever because EYVA told you you're going to be unwell and you started, going on a psychosomatic journey that, okay, I am going to be unwell? Yeah, I hope that wasn't the case.
I'm sure it wasn't.
Just by a show of hands, how many people want to have a better response to stress and anxiety? Right? How many people want to say that, oh, whatever happens, I want to be less anxious, less stressed? Okay, that's a huge percentage. How many people want better quality sleep? Everyone. Is this just Delhi? Yeah? How many want a deeper attention span and focus and concentration? Great. So at one of my ventures called NeuroLeap, we use technology non-invasively to map your brain at an in-depth level to understand your subconscious brain patterns and help you understand why you are the way you are, what makes you you. So it's not enough to know that I don't have a good response to stress, I get anxious easily. It's important to know why is that happening and what can I do to change my response. How can I sleep better? What can I do to get more restful sleep and wake up feeling more rejuvenated and fresh? That is just an example of how technology today is enabling outcomes in the health space without any medication, without any blood-based diagnostic, and without you having to visit a doctor or a hospital. Because all of these issues that you are facing are not really medical in nature unless diagnosed by a medical professional, and then you're given a pharmacological label, and hopefully for that industry you become a customer for life. These are all your individual patterns which can be understood and changed. One of the technologies in this journey, which, like Venkat said, he's using, is AI. And Venkat, help us understand, what is the traditional drug discovery, cost, timeline? Why is it not applicable to rare diseases? And how are you using AI to make it applicable and to really make it effective?
Yeah, good question. So a typical drug before, rather a typical therapy, by the time it reaches the market, it would have gone through at least 12 years of development. So that is the average ballpark, more than a decade of development. So this is post understanding more about the disease itself, as in like only once you have defined a problem, you can solve a problem. Once the problem has been defined, to find a solution and go through all the steps of finding a solution and getting it through the regulatory bodies and in the hands of the patient, it takes about 12 years. In this journey, about 5 to 6 years is on actually finding a drug, finding a molecule or finding whatever therapeutic for the solution, basically a solution. And the next 6 years is the regulatory path, typically. And what we are doing at Peptris is trying to shrink this time, from the 5-6 year period to less than 2 years. So plus minus. So with this one, what happens is, once you have defined a condition, being able to find a therapy for it, that time reduces drastically. When it comes to rare diseases, the other challenge is the cost of the whole development path, including the clinical trials, everything, goes north of about $2 billion. When we say $2 billion, we have to take it like an amortized cost. You do a lot of tests, you fail, you do multiple iterations, and then you finally reach the goal. So for every drug in the market, there are probably 3 or 4 failed drugs that almost reach there. Yeah? So all that together, the cost is $2 billion. Now, at Peptris, our endeavor is to get one part of the problem solved in less than $1 million.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So that is the order difference. So even if we are talking about 3 or 4 iterations to it before we hit the goal, we are talking literally 2 orders lower than what the current norms are. This is very important, particularly in the scenarios of rare diseases, where the total number of patient pool that you have itself is much limited, and the total paying capacity could also be limited because of that.
Got it. Dr. Anasuya, your industry is very interesting in the sense you're enabling a lot of what we are working on by invisible prevention, where the user or a possible patient doesn't even know, he's being helped. What is something really cutting edge or futuristic that you're seeing on the horizon, maybe 5 or 10 years down the line?
So I work with a lot of material sciences industry, and my work is mainly B2B. So I interact with a lot of industries on which India is based today. India's economy is based today. For example, the textile industry, the polymer industry, the polyurethane foam industry, the coatings industry. These are basis of material sciences industries in India. And there has been many shift in this industry with regards to how we define material protection. Well, many years back, there was no such concept. There was no such concept of antimicrobial protection of materials. There was no such technology available. About 10 to 15 years back, some of the technologies, antimicrobial technologies, very early came from the likes of the US or the UK, which are considered as developed countries. And those technologies were very expensive. They were only made by they're backed by science and led by innovation, but they were very costly. So for the Indian market, it was not suitable. And right now, there are very few Indian companies who are doing antimicrobials. In fact, it's difficult to engineer that too at scale. So that is why not a lot of companies deal with it. But what we have seen is the Indian market has picked it up, the antimicrobial technology. They have put it in many products. Now the industry is slowly shifting towards sustainability. Sustainability is coming up as big time in material sciences. See, now we are not using plastic water bottles as you see today. We are switched to glass. Similar to that, in the B2B formulations industry, a lot of our raw materials have switched to bio-based. Lot of what we produce has to be traced back to where we are making it, to the end consumer. If you did not know, in the textile industry, the polyester that we use for textiles, mainly for athleisure, sportswear, and all of those applications, those are 100% recycled in India as of now. Those are made from the PET bottles. So in India, you just cannot open a polyester plant and start producing polyester fabrics. This does not happen. There is an absolute ban on that. So slowly, the whole industry is towards sustainability, towards more responsible, consumerism, and we are also adopting towards that.
Thanks. Sunil, where do you see, diagnostics and preventive technologies in the hands of the consumers? Of course, they are all AI-enabled, they're predictive in nature. How do you see that spanning in the next few years? Because we've currently got a proliferation of these gadgets, right? From a smart ring to a CGM to other wearables on your wrist, watches. How do you see this panning out in the next 3 to 5 years?
So far, health has been a topic that people usually pick up once they have some illness. Otherwise, no one really pays attention to. But with more devices and miniaturization is one of them, and AI is another that is attaching to it, I see a stronger democratization and awareness around a person's own body to understand what suits to them, what doesn't. We have these a lot of these ancient wisdom, all the way from consuming certain foods in the morning or drinking hot water first thing in the morning has a lot of science behind it, right? So all that was just left over as some just blind sayings or dumb sayings by your grandma, but there was no scientific backing to it. But with the AI and devices, you probably might be able to see what it can do when you do those activities in your day-to-day life. And the second thing I could see is hyper-personalization of health to one's very unique lifestyle or health habits. So far, the entire data or the thresholds we have across the globe are super generic. It might have been run on just a Caucasian population or African population or Asian population, but it wasn't hyper-personalized to your very specific environmental, physiological, biological, behavioral conditions. For example, probably I'm in Delhi, the AQI is very different, whereas in Hyderabad, the AQI is very different. For each of these AQIs, air quality index, how will my body as a whole will respond? We are part of this nature and our body responds to it. Knowing it will help us to be prepared a little better.
Interesting. I'm going to open it to the audience for a couple of questions. Just raise your hand. I think there are people with mics and they'll reach you. Anybody? No questions. So I guess, okay. There's a lady here on the second row. Can we get a mic there? Ma'am, if you could just introduce yourself and get to the question.
So My name is Rupashi Chabra, and I'm from the NDTV Health section. And basically, when it comes to AI and healthcare, what I've seen, the inclination to integrate to AI is quite great because of digitization in India and how prolific it is. But the main issue when it comes to medical and health is in each of your foundations and startups, how do you practice like ethics and dealing with sensitive like medical information of patients on a worldwide scale? Because we already know there is so much lack of privacy due to digitization. So how do you ensure, like in your startups or when you're doing research on new products, how do you integrate ethics and the moral aspect, which is still lacking with the evolution of AI into your products and systems?
That's such a brilliant question. Whilst I think about my answer, I'm going to lob it to the panelists.
Sure.
Anybody want to go for it? Yeah.
I'll take that. Actually, that's an interesting question. So right now, AI had been fairly new, even in the health tech segment. There are regulatory bodies that are trying to put certain guard rings around it now, but that is still under formulation. In my understanding, so far it's been up to the brand's ethics and their interest in providing the privacy to the consumer as much as possible. Obviously, there are these HIPAA compliance, GDPR that are there to protect the privacy of the user overall. But when it comes to health, the training, how can we even avoid AI hallucinations overall by just looking at the data has been, I believe, is still in a nascent stage. That's why good brands that really care for their consumers always are cautious about giving those insights or analytics, and also are very careful in providing that, hey, this is not gonna replace your doctor or your medical advisor. This is more of a generic understanding from whatever the data has been given. Yeah.
You want to go for it?
So we are in what we call as a preclinical drug discovery. Yeah. So at Peptris, and so the guardrails for us are the regulatory bodies. So the moment we have discovered a drug, in this case, the regulatory bodies are the ones who will ensure that it can actually be consumed by a human, and so there are a lot of tests before it gets in there. For some of the other data that we're talking about, like where we are talking about target ranging different from different populations and so on, the regulations are yet to be like framed fully. But most of the time in the data that we are looking at, the publicly available data, they are all unlabeled in that sense. So they are basically masked with all personal data out, and only data related to large populations being presented to us. So we don't have that problem per se.
And on our side, one of my ventures, like I said, NeuroLeap, we map your brain, we get neurometric data. So each client, when they do a brain mapping, we probably get about 10 million data points in half an hour or so. Luckily, it's all anonymized because we are not really concerned about who you are, right? It's more about how old are you, what's your gender, whether you're left or right-handed, and what does your neurometric data tell us. So from that perspective, privacy isn't really a problem as such. But I completely understand where you're saying. But my word of caution is, let's not assume that AI by itself is going to create problems in terms of privacy. We all have gotten a blood test at some point in time, right? So your path lab knows enough about you, right? You've gone and got an X-ray or a sonography, and the hospital network knows enough about you. So I think we should be looking at privacy all through the value chain, and not just when that data is being used for AI and some fancy algorithms. So perhaps the sort of lens of privacy needs to be administered way earlier into the journey of the patient and provider interaction. But thank you. Thank you for being a great audience. We've run out of time. I think we've run out of time.
Yes,
and,
but please take your questions to the panelists once they're off stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that's okay. Very quickly, in 10 seconds, if you just want to squeeze in that question, just go ahead.
And what's your question, sir? I think there is a gentleman who comes on TV every morning in a saffron dhoti and nothing else, and he's already doing it for millions of people. He's your answer already.
Okay, so I will answer this question. So some of the things that are happening is the use of natural products, for any kind of screening, and actually trying to do the hypothesis from it, saying that how it works and why it works. So there are, for that matter, we do screen natural products for some of the targets that we go behind. There are companies based on the US which are working only on that. There is a company called EYVA Biosciences, whose premise is like trying to figure out what is there out there in the natural products that can become a drug over time.
So I guess we have more questions. We'll pause you right there. Thank you very much, panelist Kumaar. What a great job. Fantastic session. Venkat, Sunil, Anasuya, thank you very much for joining us on the stage. Upasana, can I request you to honor our panelists? I think it was a great session, and today we are catalyzing a healthier, more resilient future, and obviously keen to know more answers in today's world. The world has changed. We're looking to healthier options, and let's decode more. Please feel free to reach out to the panelists post this session. And special thanks to our co-partner, Arctic Event, and delivery partner, Sky Air. Thank you very much.